Welcome to the show, Dr. Dyer.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you.
Thanks so much. I wanted to ask you a question about ego, because I know that you focus a lot on clearing the ego and the pattern or negative habits of thought. And I'm just curious what your opinion is. Is there still a place for the ego?
Well, if there wasn't, all of us would just be spirits and there'd be no people here.
Okay.
So there must be a place for it. But it's really not worth defending. It's what Muktananda called the false self. It's the part of us that really believes that who we are is not this divine, perfect being that is a piece of God from which we originated, but comes into the world and is trained to believe, that we are what we collect, and we are what we accomplish, and we are what other people think of us, and we're all separate from each other, and we're all separate from God, and so on. And these kinds of beliefs really don't serve us at all. They serve mostly to keep us from reaching our highest potentiality. They keep us constantly in a state of competition. They keep us constantly in a feeling of having to accomplish more and to strive, never arriving, and always comparing ourselves to other people, and basically never being satisfied and never being happy. So if we can tame that ego, I always call the ego the word EGO, the acronym for edging God out, or Earth Guide only. But what we are, we're not here as human beings with egos having a spiritual experience once in a while on Sunday mornings. Basically, essentially, we're all spiritual beings, infinite spiritual beings, having a temporary human experience. And I think understanding that and recognizing that, like who you are right now, who I'm talking to, Marie, and who you're talking to a man who's 70 years old and has been in many, many different bodies. Since I was born in 1940, I was in a little baby body. I was in a 3-year-old body, a 20-year-old body, and on and on and on. All of these bodies. And again, Muktananda said that is real, which never changes. So the part of us that never changes certainly isn't our bodies, because we just keep occupying new bodies all the time. And that's the part of us that I address, the part of us that never changes, the infinite, the spiritual part of us. And that ego part is hardly worth defending at all.
Okay, fair enough. That's a wonderful answer. Thank you so much, Dr. Dyer. And I'm also curious because I know that when you were a child, you experienced some challenges. You were in an orphanage for a time. It sounds like you were quite just naturally an optimistic kid who kind of made the most out of your situation. But what advice do you have for people who are more naturally kind of pessimistic?
Well, naturally isn't pessimistic, and naturally it's more learned. If you are pessimistic, if you see the glass as half empty, if you anticipate, that things aren't going to work out, that the world is a dangerous and an unfriendly place, those are all pessimistic points of view, but all they are is just thoughts. And I would recommend that you begin to examine those thoughts and ask yourself if you become what you think about, as you think, as a man thinketh, so is he. And if you become what you think about, and what you're thinking about is what's wrong, or what's missing, or what isn't working out, or what isn't going to work out, then what you're really doing is attracting more and more of what you don't want into your life, because the universe sort of aligns with you and offers you up experiences that match up to the thoughts that you have. So change your thoughts, and you change your life. It's the name of a book that I wrote about the Tao Te Ching. And so I would just urge people to go within, examine any thoughts that they have which are tied into not being able to attract into your life what you want, or thinking that the world is an unfriendly place, or thinking that things are that it's an evil place, and so on. And begin to just change those thoughts around. Just internally, just begin to say to yourself affirmations. The world supports me. I live in a friendly universe. Einstein said one of the most important questions that you can ask yourself is to decide what kind of a world do you live in. Do you live in a world that you believe is friendly and supports you, or do you live in a world that you believe is against you and working towards your defeat? And if you believe that you're in that kind of a world, then you'll see it everywhere. But if you believe that you're in a world that supports you, you'll be looking for that support, and your life will just be much happier.
And Dr. Dyer, do you have any tips for, obviously affirmations can be very powerful, and at the same time, so many of us will say an affirmation and then our ego or whatever it is inside of us that's that little negative, chatty person will be like, no, that's not true, you suck, or whatever. So what tips do you have in addition to affirmations to kind of break that cycle so you say an affirmation and then the negative thought comes up? How do you react to that?
Well, I think you have to react to remember that anything that comes up, as you put it, or any of the reaction that doesn't seem to hold for you, is really just more of your training. It's these are memes, which are like mind viruses that are placed into your life and into your head when you're very, very young, little boys and little girls. All of the limitations, all the things that you can't do, all of the restrictions that you'll have, all of the bad luck, all of the fact that you were born poor and you'll stay poor. All of the fact that you're sick and you can't do anything about that, and then begin to not only to have the affirmations, but begin to act out on those affirmations. To practice looking for something positive in somebody else. Practice seeing the unfolding of God in anyone that you encounter, rather than seeing what you don't like. Practice not being so critical of other people, and instead looking for the good in them. Practice with your children, catching them doing things right, and reminding them how great they are and how much you love them, rather than constantly focusing on what's wrong. Because the more you focus on what they can't do and on what's wrong and what you don't like, the more you just encourage that kind of behavior. They become what they hear and what they think about as well. It's a new way of being. It's a new way of thinking, and it's like doing a somersault almost and landing in a new reality, a reality which says all things are possible, a reality which says this is the only day that I have, and I'm going to enjoy it and make the absolute most out of it. An attitude that says I'm grateful. I'm grateful for not only the positive things that show up in my life, but for the negative things as well, because they're my greatest teachers as well. And even the people around me that don't agree with me and I find difficulty with, these are very often your soulmates, the people that are teaching you and showing you day in and day out how much work you have to do on yourself. And stay close to God. That's my greatest tip. Remember that God is not something external to you, that you must be like what you came from, and what you came from a divine source, and you'll return to a divine source. The poet reminds us that we shall not cease from exploration, but at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated, but to know it for the first time. That was T.S. Eliot. He was speaking about dying, but I think I'm speaking more about living from that divine spiritual place all the time, and seeing yourself as a spiritual being rather than as a human being having a little bit of a spiritual experience.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Dyer. And I'm curious, one listener would like to know, I know that you get up very early in the morning, and one listener would like to know, what do you say to yourself? What's the first thing that you tell yourself when you get up in the morning? First thing I say is thank you. I say it every morning. Thank you for this day. Thank you for my breath. Thank you for the fact that I have another day to live. I have another morning to be alive. If you see my film, The Shift, it opens with that line when I wake up. And The Shift originally was called Ambition to Meaning, but now it's a movie with Portia de Rossi and myself and several other great actors. And I just stay in a state of gratitude from the very, very opening time I open my eyes. I say, thank you, God, for this day. Beautiful. And do you find at this point, you're now 70, and you've obviously been practicing this for a long time, but do you still have negative thoughts that come up? Oh, yeah, all the time. I'm constantly working on myself. I have struggles. I have 8 children. I have leukemia. I've had heart disease. I've had separation from my wife and divorce. I've had addiction, and there are temptations all the time. But by and large, I allow that. Instead of seeing myself as just having a little tiny speck of God inside of me that I consult once in a while, like on a Sunday morning,
I try to move that to more of like a segment or a larger portion of myself, so that I can remember that I am God in action. I am not ever separate from God, and reminding myself that that's who I am. That it keeps those negative thoughts at bay.
Wonderful. Well, I hope that you're doing all right with your treatment for the leukemia right now.
I'm doing fine. I'm here, and I'm breathing, and I'm alive, and I'm getting ready to go in the ocean and swim, and this is the only day I have. There's not a person out there listening, and there's not an animal out there or a tree or anything that's here on this planet or in this universe that doesn't go through the same 4 steps. You go through birth, and then growth, and then decay, and then death. But the part of you that is in there that just keeps occupying all new places, that part of us never dies. And that's who I am. That's where I do most of my living.
Beautifully said. Thank you. And Dr. Dyer, when you come to Vancouver on November 23rd, what can you say to people who haven't experienced your work? What are they going to take home with them if they come to your event on November 23rd?
Well, hopefully they'll take home a set of beliefs that I open my talk usually with this idea that if you wouldn't show up at a talk like this or even listen to this interview if there wasn't a part of you that really wanted to elevate your life, to improve it, to move to a higher place. And in order to elevate your life in any way, you have to change your concept of yourself. Now, your concept of yourself is everything that you believe to be true. And everything that you believe to be true has gotten you to where you are. But if you'd like to get to a higher place, you have to start looking within and challenging many of the things that you have come to believe are true about who you are, what you can do, what's possible for you, what kinds of things that you can accomplish, and so on. You have to change what you have come to believe is true, and hopefully they will leave with an idea of some things to think about themselves that they may never have thought of as true. That they are all miracles and miracle workers, and that the lines from Jesus in the New Testament, that even the least among you can do all that I have done and even greater things, is something that they should begin to take literally, that they can indeed perform miracles and manifest what they want into their lives.
And that brings up a question for me, Dr. Dyer, regarding manifestation. So many people seek out spirituality these days. Many people have seen like a movie like The Secret, and I'm just wondering how you respond to that aspect of the law of attraction.
Well, I don't really think that you get what you want. I think you get what you are, and you attract into your life what you are. So if you want to attract abundance and prosperity into your life, you have to be it, and you have to take your focus off of yourself and what's in it for you, and begin to think like God thinks, because the source of all creation is in a divine source of some kind. Call it God or Spirit or the Tao. It doesn't matter, and you have to act like that, which means that instead of asking, you're much more in giving. Instead of having a mantra that says, what's in it for me and how can I get more, you begin to say, how may I serve? What may I do for you? And when you get to that place and you're acting that way, everything else that you need for your life, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a new car in the driveway or a new fancy watch on your wrist. It can be just the great inner satisfaction of knowing that you have improved the quality of life for someone else. Can't really ask for much more than that.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Dyer. I know you're very busy, so I appreciate you taking time from your day to speak with us here at Synchronicity. And I just want to ask you if there's anything else that you'd like to add.
No, I just have to tell everyone that I love them. That'd be fine.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we love you too.
Thank you so much. God bless you. I appreciate talking to you.
Thanks, Dr. Dyer, and I'll see you on November 23rd.
Great.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And thank you for being with us. I hope that this has served you well. I want to send you so much love. Be well. Namaste.